Good afternoon. I am back today with Frey, the CTO of SnapAttack. My name is Teddy Powers. I am part of the Google Cloud Security Strategic Technology Partnerships team. And today we're going to be talking about how to make threat intelligence actionable. Fred, it's great to have you here.
Great. Thanks, Teddy, for inviting me here. It's great to be here. Yes, my name is Frey. I am the CTO, as Teddy mentioned. Threat hunting is my passion, and yeah, ever since I've been in cybersecurity 25 years, and one of the things I'm really passionate about talking about is how we can make threat intelligence more actionable. When we were in the military and doing this for intelligence agencies, it was very, very clear what role threat intelligence played. But when we come to the private sector and the public sector, I think threat intelligence is excellent, but how do we action that and how do we share that knowledge in an actionable way is what SnapAttack is all about.
Yeah, absolutely. And SnapAttack has actually been a partner of Mandiant's before we became part of Google Cloud Security, and really kind of taking advantage of the partnership in multiple ways. Where SnapAttack today, as a consumer of Mandiant Threat Intelligence, has an integration point with the security validation technology, and they also have a great integration with Google Chronicle for any customers out there who might be migrating or looking to further enhance their detections.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have very deep integrations into multiple vendors. We love our partnership here at Mandiant. We integrate deeply with the threat intelligence, the Mandiant security validation, and as well as the Chronicle Google SIM. So yeah, absolutely. We'll talk about that today and how we can pull all of those threads together into an actionable workflow.
Yeah, and this couldn't be more perfectly timed because we have an unbelievably relevant example in APT41, who has just absolutely risen from the dust to lift from some of the really hardworking, brilliant researchers inside the threat analysis group, Mandiant and VirusTotal, who have worked incredibly hard to put together a report. But where we see a great opportunity in partnership with SnapAttack is how do we really go from taking what is intelligence in the form of a report and doing it at Google scale?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So let's jump in. I think the real value is, in fact, when we started this webinar, we had a totally different malware sample queued up, but we've been working with the Mandiant researchers very recently in this last week that just released this report last Thursday. So we switched gears and we think that this will be a great example to dive into. So with that, let's share screen here and jump in. Technical difficulties, of course. Share screen. And go. Okay. So yeah, this is the report that was released last week by Google Security Ops. They're very excellent researchers. We're investigating APT41, which is a Chinese threat actor that both does espionage operations as well as financial motivated crimes. So think, stealing credentials, stealing certificates, things like that. So the executive summary does a really great job. I'll let you read it, but essentially this actor was in this network for multiple years, and Mandiant was called in to do an incident response against this, as all good threat intelligence comes from the trenches. So they did an incident response. They dug through the malware. They reverse engineered the malware. They looked at some of the code signing certificates. They were able to attribute this to APT41. And the real kill chain that we're going to go through is this. The kill chain is, the actors exploited a web server. They dropped down a Bluebeam Antsword, which is a web shell backdoor, an ASP backdoor. They then used some living off the land techniques using certutils to download a stage 2 payload, which in this case was Cobalt Strike. They used Cobalt Strike interactively to land and expand in this network, find out where their real target of opportunity was, which in this victim was the Oracle database and some of the sensitive data that they were exfiltrating from the Oracle database. Unfortunately, in this case, they did land down a custom rat, and they were able to get all of this data using a SQL dumper tool right there. You can see to the far right of the kill chain. They dumped the Oracle database. Then they used a very unique, or not so unique, but a living off the land technique to exfiltrate this to a Microsoft OneDrive account. So that'll bypass any kind of exfiltration detection because it's a normal activity syncing with OneDrive. So you could see that through Pine Grove. That's the technique there. So unfortunately, in this case, the adversaries were able to do a full kill chain from initial exploitation, stay in the network for over a year, and then exfiltrate this data.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, Beacon looks very familiar. And I guess one of the things that I think about is when it comes to detections, how would a tool like SnapAttack help someone find a threat like this earlier in the kill chain?
Yeah, exactly. So this kill chain is reusing a lot of TTPs that could have been detected and prevented early on in the kill chain cycle. So, for instance, living off the land techniques, they're oftentimes reused by various threat actors, but especially by certain threat actors. So when we actually emulated this threat, we found over 18 detections that could have detected early on in this kill chain cycle this malicious behavior, brought it to their attention, and they could have possibly have stopped this breach from really happening.
Wow, that is so fascinating. As we kind of look further into this, is this maybe a moment where I can think of this out of the perspective of a CISO who is turning to my team and asking, are we impacted by this? Have we seen this before? And helping me kind of answer that in a much more rapid fashion.
Absolutely. So threat intelligence, as you mentioned, CISOs oftentimes read the news. They have threat intelligence teams that prioritize. But at the end of the day, it's really about, are we protected, right? So are we affected by this thing that's in the news, or that our threat intelligence team is bubbling up? So, threat intelligence is really a prioritization mechanism. And so we integrate with the Mandiant threat intelligence, now Google SecOps intelligence, to help not only present, but also help prioritize based off of their industry, right? Are they oil and gas? Are they manufacturing? Are they healthcare? Are they financial? All of these things can go into the threat intelligence portal to help prioritize in SnapAttack the Mandiant intelligence to be consumed. But it doesn't stop there, right? Prioritization is step one. Step two is actionability. And so, if I just scroll through this excellent research paper, I'd highly recommend everybody read. You can see there's probably 18 pages of, very technical, great detail about what this adversary is doing, how Dust Trap works, how SQL Dumper works. But the challenge really in our industry is that this information needs to be communicated at machine-to-machine speed. And so 18-page PDF, a lot of these rules were put into Chronicle so they can help protect Chronicle customers. But this intelligence needs to share across vendors, across platforms to really get the scale of detection and really going after this adversary, no matter what vendor they might be having. So yeah, that's actionability is really, really important. So when we talk about actionability, I really talk about two major things, right? There is IOCs. If you think about the pyramid of pain, there's the IOCs, which are the bottom half layer. IOCs are IPs, hashes, and domains. And then you have the top level of the pyramid of pain, which is the TTPs, right? The behavioral techniques, the artifacts left behind from various toolings, things like that. And so really you need a complete picture. A lot of people today stop at IOCs. And the real simple reality is that because they're easy, an IP address, a hash, and a domain is the easiest thing to search through your SIM or your EDR for, but they're also the most trivial for hackers to change. So we absolutely recommend using IOCs, and Mandiant has some of the best IOC feeds in the world, but you have to go beyond that step to the behaviors of it. We recently did a study where we were taking a look at, Cobalt Strike, and Cobalt Strike was actually used in this intrusion. And I'd say like six really well crafted, finely tuned behavioral detections that could be put into your SIM was equivalent to, there's 80,000 IOCs attributed to Cobalt Strike, because every time you compile it, you get a very different IOC. So whack-a-mole with 80,000 IPs, hashes, and domains versus 6 well-crafted detections. So that's what we're trying to do at SnapAttack, is merge IOCs plus behavioral detection to give it really good coverage.
Yeah, and given your background working for both the NSA and Booz Allen Hamilton, I believe you said you were a consultant in a former life. Tell me a little bit about how your empathy for what going through an operation looks like has kind of led you to this role at SnapAttack?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so I've been in cybersecurity 25 years, but most prominently in 2016, stepped away from, the intelligence world to do threat hunting. And so with threat hunting, I was running a team, started a team, and was helping Fortune 500 companies build their own threat hunting teams. And one of the challenges was that when there was a new threat intelligence report, every CISO at various 30 different companies was always asking about the same intelligence report or the same threat actor, whatever your actor du jour that week is. But we would have to translate our detections and really by hand, literally write a star rule for Sentinel-1, a Splunk rule for Splunk customers, a Yara L signature for Chronicle rules, and that's just not scalable. When we're trying to hunt, as a community, APT41. We can't have this siloed information. So in SnapAttack, we strongly believe detection as code is the right way. We encapsulate the artifacts and the forensic artifacts that we know are left behind by this various tooling. We build those into rules as code. Then with a click of a button in SnapAttack, you can compile that. And then with another click, push that out as a threat hunt to your Chronicle instance. If the results are really well tuned, no future tuning needed, then you can click another button and push that out as a rule, as we'll demonstrate in just a bit.
Yeah, I know it's so crucial to be able not only to properly emulate, but to also validate those detections. And if you could speak a little bit about how you guys do that.
Yeah, let's jump into the platform. I'll show you a little bit about how SnapAttack goes from a very much a threat-centric approach. I was a former red teamer, so I very much think that if you're writing a detection, you need to be able to emulate the threat. Otherwise, you're essentially writing a detection that has 0 hits, 0 rules, and you have no way of proving it does work or doesn't work. So let's jump into the platform real quick. So this APT41 threat actor page has the bigger picture to it, right? So this is just one report that was released last Thursday, but APT41 has actually been around for many, many years. As we mentioned, there's metadata around like this is Chinese, espionage, financial gain. Here's a brief overview that we get from Mandiant Intelligence, OEM'd into the platform, what aliases they go by from other actors, various vulnerabilities and CVEs they're exploiting. But the main real thing that we want to focus in on is the threats and the detections. Before we get into, we talked about IOCs. I just want to briefly show how easy it is to hunt for these IOCs. So at the bottom of this report, there's an excellent list of IOCs right down here. So these host-based indicators are the exact incident response or multiple incident responses combined together. These are things that you can hunt for very easily in SnapAttack. So they're automatically imported and attached to the APT41 actor. So you can click on the actors indicators tab. You can see really quickly there's 2,300 IOCs. That might be too many. Let's kind of hone that down. Let's go minimum confidence score. Let's go to 90. So now we have 1,300. And then let's just look for, remember we talked about IOCs as being very perishable. Something that happened, an IP address from a hacker 1 year ago is no good today. And in fact, it generally isn't even good in the future. So a lot of people use IOCs, push it into a SIM, and then protect against that IP address in the future, where really threat actors are rotating their IP addresses daily. So this incident response, we want to look back in time. And a lot of tips providers, a lot of IOC providers, they don't provide this capability. So in SnapAttack, it's very easy. I can say, let's just see what's happened in the last 90 days. There's 100 IOCs. And then with just another click of a button, I can click Hunt, go to Chronicle. I want to go to 30 days. I'll name it IOC APT41 Hunt. And then I can click Submit. So right now what we're doing is we're actually connecting through one of those deep integrations that we have through our Google partnership to Chronicle. And we're going back in time and we're hunting for IP addresses, hashes, and domains. So this is very quick, took 20, 30 seconds to do. And we recommend doing that. It'll take about 6 minutes to query that data. While we're doing that, let's jump over to possibly the more interesting aspect, which is the detections. So detections here, I will just grab. So we mentioned Pinegrove. Pinegrove was that OneDrive exfiltration tool. Here's Cobalt Strike. We talked about that being mentioned, and Ant Sword. So we have detections in the platform that are just a few clicks away from being used. Before you run any kind of behavioral detection, though, you before you push it as a rule so that you're protected forward, you always want to hunt back in time. So we make that very, very easy. Here, let's jump actually to the actual emulation of the threat. So as we've begun, the emulation of the threat is critical to understanding what happened. And so here we can see the full kill chain as described in that report. Here is the user staging beacon versus cert util, getting access through that web shell. If I actually push play, this is a video. So you can see them doing all of this through Cobalt Strike. So there's two virtual machines in here. There's the victim and the attacker. So here's this is actually our threat intelligence research team in collaboration and coordination with the Mandiant threat intelligence research team, the authors of this report. So we're kind of emulating this threat so that we understand very deeply what the artifacts are. And then we can write those detections, or more so often we find that we already have detections in our lab that match a lot of these TTPs. So we'll just kind of fast forward here. They're setting their backdoor through a staged service execution persistence. Then they are reaching out to the Oracle database, pulling down the Oracle database. So you can kind of, I guess I could zoom in here so you can see a little bit more of the actual commands that the threat actor were running as a part of this. And then lastly, they're exfiltrating that Oracle sensitive data via Pinegrove, which is that OneDrive exfiltration. It's a really low and slow, sneaky way to get data from a host computer out to OneDrive that they own and operate. So through this emulation, this not only gives us a good sense of what kind of telemetry is left behind, but it also, in SnapAttack, allows us to provide recommendation detections. And so I think out of this list, I think here's our recommended detections that hit on this actual sandbox event. I think we created 3 of these in the last week, but the other ones existed. So like what we said, this could have been prevented. This kill chain, we could have detected, as early as the web shell, web shell spawning nasty processes. So, this is very, very important. So when we talk about validation, not only are these detections recommended, but we've shown the receipts, if you will, of these detections actually firing on a Windows 10 machine with an EDR and proper logging.
Wow, that is unbelievable to be able to go ahead and take, everything from the IOCs to the behaviors and showcase how do we go from, what might be point in time analysis. And I'm starting to think about this as the way that law enforcement might go after a criminal group, right? It's the idea of building a case. So those IOCs they're looking historically is your first clue into the fact that, hey, I have an issue in my environment. But in order to see kind of how the adversary may have progressed or will look to progress in the future and be able to better identify where they are in my network, those detections are absolutely crucial.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, IOCs are your first line of defense. But if they change the IP address, they didn't change necessarily their TTP. So focusing at the choke point, if you will, of how can we detect this adversary, focusing at the choke point, not the widest part of the funnel, is really super important. So, all right, so here's how we emulated it. Here's how we validated it. Here's how we know that those detections work. How do we action it in a customer's environment? So, with SnapAttack, very easy to do again. What we want to do is we want to take these recommended detections from this report and we want to hunt. So with this button, we can launch a hunt. And just like we did with the IOC, I'm going to name it APT41 TTP hunt. And we're going to go back, say 90 days this time with behavioral detections. We're going to hunt across one or more EDRs or SIMs. Some customers have a hybrid team where they have, this vendor as the EDR, this vendor as the SIM. Sometimes they have mergers and acquisitions where they have multiple different vendors in the same network. So SnapAttack really shines there because with one rule, you can hunt simultaneously through, multiple different vendors with just a click of a button. So, just for the heck of it, we'll actually hunt through Carbon Black and Chronicle at the same time.
Yeah, I never even thought about that use case of kind of in an M&A transaction and trying to understand what your risk exposure is through bringing that third party into your organization. That's fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we talked about, like we were hunting across 30 different organizations. Well, some of our customers, in fact, one government customer has 27 subclusters that each have autonomy to pick their own EDR and SIM. And so how do you, at the end of the day, when you say hunt for APT41 in government organization, how do you actually action that across 27 variations of it? It's very, very challenging, but can be very easy if you use detection as code and if you have API access like SnapAttack does.
Can you just, for our viewers here with us today, can you
Sure.
go into a little bit about what detection as code means?
Yeah, detection as code, it allows you to do some very interesting things. So let's actually talk about one of the detections that we're hunting for right now via API. So here's a web shell, process tree. So if we look back at our graph, that is the far left, right? This is where we want to try and detect our customers, right? Or detect the adversary. So when they land this web shell, it's going to be spawning some really malicious, weird-looking things, right? Namely, cert utils downloading a stage 2 Cobalt Strike beacon payload. So this detection, specifically would have caught that. So in here, we're version tracking. We believe in lifecycle management of detections. We're not just a content repository. We are reporting from intelligence all the way to reporting to your CISO. What is my gaps? What is my coverage? How deep am I at any given MITRE attack technique? Per report, how well can I defend my organization or detect? So you can see right here, here's a detection. And so to your question, it's tagged with actors, malware, vulnerabilities that you can pivot into and link into if you want more information. But at the end of the day, here is the detection that's going to be pushed via API. And let's say we need it in Chronicle EDR search, but maybe we used what do we use? We could use CrowdStrike. So maybe I also have CrowdStrike EDR and Chronicle SIM. So I might want to actually hunt it in 2 different places. So with just a click of a button, we were able to transform this detection pretty drastically to be able to search different vendors. So let's go back to Chronicle. So let's go to Chronicle search. In Chronicle, there's 2 different syntax languages. There's Chronicle search and Chronicle YARL rule. So with this, it's just a click of a button away. We're already actually hunting 10 of these rules via API. But let's say I just wanted to hunt this one really quickly live. With that magnifying glass, we've automatically pivoted into our Google SecOps platform. We've got the rule in there and it's already hunting, for the historically for this rule. So the integrations have multiple different depths here.
Wow. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you can actually deploy multiple detections at once. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So if we go back to this example here, this detection is deployed to my Splunk demo environment, my Sentinel-1 demo environment. I can manually, deploy this to Chronicle. And so when I click deploy, it's going to synchronize with the API and actually push that rule. So first, what we always recommend is hunting back 30 days for any new rule before you deploy it as a protection going forward. Let's hunt backwards, make sure there's not too many false positives. If there are too many false positives, say there's 1,000 hits, in SnapAttack, we have a workflow for automatically tuning those detections, finding heavy hitting parent-child processes, things that you can tune out as normal traffic so that the rule gives your SOC analyst as little false positives as possible. Then once you have that tuned, you click another button and you can deploy it.
Okay.
And yeah, like you mentioned, you could do one at a time or you could do many. So if we go back to that report, let's see which tab it was. Yeah, so this report, here are the recommendation detections. Our recommendation algorithm is probably one of the most interesting things that we can do that no other company can do. Because we have the threats, because we have the detections, and because we can hook to your data lake, we can actually pre-measure the false positive ratios, the robustness of the detection, as well as the false positive and the true positive. You combine those together with a priority of how much should that customer care about APT41, and you get a big picture strategically of what are the best rules I should deploy to protect me against adversaries that are targeting me most likely. So when you have that full picture, it's pretty easy to answer the mail and report on your progress of closing gaps, having good MITRE ATT&CK coverage for your network. So yeah, you can do one deploy at a time, or like you said, you could actually say, yep, all of these I want to deploy to Chronicle and other vendor with just a click of a button.
Great.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as I kind of think about this, other than being able to answer that CISO level question, previously needing, not to take anything away from you and all those other great threat hunters out there who truly end up being unicorns, along with those who are excellent malware engineers, those who are great reverse engineers. But I feel as though, we're at another point in technology where we could see something like a SnapAttack and this sort of functionality help people who are, level 2, level 3 SOC analysts up level and give them that threat hunting ability that just previously wasn't available to them just because of the knowledge gap or the need to know how to work just one more tool.
Yeah, absolutely. SnapAttack is really great at also helping customers with learning, right? So leveling up junior analysts and empowering senior analysts to take more time doing their actual threat hunting and sifting through the data, and less time doing the research, the crafting of the rules, the detections, things like that. So yeah, with thousands of rules, thousands of detections, all deeply linked to each other, absolutely a junior analyst or SOC operator can come in here and ask a question, about a Cobalt Strike, find the answer, find intelligence reports, find detections, find threat hunts, find actual emulations of Cobalt Strike, and then actually learn how Cobalt Strike operates. What are all of the variations of it, right? So here's 264 different interactive sandbox opportunities to learn variations of Cobalt Strike matched with the detections that actually can help you solve that problem. Here's the threat, what's the solution, and then an easy path to deploy.
Wow, that is just unbelievable. And, when you think about kind of your time as consultant when you were doing this, like what type of time savings are we talking about here?
Yeah, ultimately, this is very technologically cool, but you're right. We're talking about cost savings. We're talking about empowering companies to go faster, to take threat intelligence from last Thursday being dropped on, all social medias, as well as being emailed and pushed out to Mandiant customers. How do you take that and minimize the time to actionability, right? If there's so much threat intelligence in the world and you have 3 analysts, there's a big bottleneck there at the human level. So empowering customers to really move faster with intelligence, from intelligence to actionability, is absolutely critical. I would say, obviously I'm probably biased, but I mean, something that would take me, weeks of time to do threat hunting, research, analysis, crafting and emulation of what the threat is that I'm hunting for, to creating the rules, to hunting, that could take weeks. Now it can take, a day, right? So we've really crafted a workflow to really condense so that it really comes down to hunting more things, detecting more things, measuring where your priorities should be, and then actioning it.
Is it fair to assume that a tool like this helps you greatly decrease your mean time to detection of an adversary in your environment because we're no longer solely relying on IOCs, but also behavioral detections?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like we said, with the APT41 report up there, the kill chain, there is no reason in today's day and age that we could not have detected web shell, backdoor activity, to lateral movement, to Cobalt Strike. There was a lot of opportunities. And so really it's about measuring which ones have the most bang for your buck, making sure they're in place so that you get the proper alerts and you can move out. I really want to make sure I shout out to this report. This is an excellent report. If anybody has not yet read it, this is just one of many threat intelligence reports that Mandiant is coming out with on a very regular basis, and very deep dive. A lot of customers or a lot of vendors will put out reports that are not actionable. This is an excellent actionable approach. Every SOC, there's something in here that they can start hunting for and detecting against, today. And we know, because this is an incident response on multiple Mandiant customers, that they're active right now. So
Yeah, this is just such a great marriage of both human readable and machine readable threat intelligence, and being able to take that using SnapAttack and go from, intelligence to execution in the best possible way. And, as I look at this, I'm just trying to figure out how do I, let's say, for example, I'm a Mandiant consultant. I think you had alluded to a use case for them that I don't think we hit on. I know we talked a little bit about Chronicle, we talked about security validation, the leveraging of Mandiant threat intelligence in the OEM fashion, but if you could hit on the consulting use case, I think that was really interesting.
yeah, absolutely. So happy to. So yeah, there's this is a two-way street. Like our partnership with Google and Mandiant is very two-directional. We leverage the intelligence, we leverage the integrations, the deep integrations into Mandiant security validation, Chronicle, as well as the Google intelligence platforms. But also Mandiant is a customer of ours. So Mandiant actually leverages this to hunt on incident responses that they're called out to that don't yet have Chronicle or the Google suite of products. Google and Mandiant, really, IR team is the best in the world, and they leverage SnapAttack amongst all of their tools. It's one of their tools in their toolbox that how can they go and land at a customer who's affected or suspected to be affected by APT41 and translate it to over 15 different languages with a click of a button. So yeah, we're helping Mandiant go faster at scale, land and be effective. Really shorten that time to effectiveness to hunt pretty dramatically.
Yeah, and that is simply how you give good the advantage. Fred, thank you so much for being here today. This is absolutely fascinating for everyone who, as Fred said, has not read this report yet. Cannot tell you enough how important it is to get out there and read this, and then knowing how to really go from taking it from being threat intelligence to being able to action on it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. And yeah, very useful. Appreciate the conversation.